My family at the airport accidentally adopted a random stranger. A few years ago, I was stuck in an airport because my flight got delayed for like the third time. You know that weird airport phase where time stops feeling real? I had been sitting near my gate for hours drinking overpriced coffee and pretending to care about planes taking off when suddenly this older woman came speed-walking toward me from across the terminal. Before I could even react, she grabbed me in the biggest hug imaginable and yelled, "Oh my God, look how tall you got." And immediately I knew something was wrong. Mainly because 1. I had never seen this woman in my life. 2. She clearly thought I was someone else. But here's the problem. There's a very small social window where you can politely say, "Sorry, I think you have the wrong person." And that window closes extremely fast once somebody starts crying and hugging you emotionally in public. Before I could say anything, like 6 more people appeared out of nowhere. A man dragging 2 suitcases. A teenage girl. Another woman carrying snacks. A little kid. Every single one of them smiling at me like I had just returned from war. And somehow my brain completely short-circuited. Instead of correcting them like a normal person, I just awkwardly nodded. Yeah, huge mistake." Instantly they all started talking at once. "How was the flight? You look so different. When did you get so tall? How's the apartment?" Now at this point I'm basically role-playing a man I've never met. And somehow it was working. Mostly because I answered every question with vague NPC dialogue. "How's the apartment?" "Pretty good." "How's school?" "Busy." "You still working that job?" "Haha, yeah, you know how it is." Apparently fake me had an apartment. Apparently fake me also had a job. Then one of the women hit me with, "So are you still dating that girl from Boston?" I have never been to Boston in my entire life. I don't know anybody from Boston. I couldn't even name 5 things in Boston. But for some reason, instead of admitting the truth, I just leaned back and said, "Haha, you know how that goes." And immediately everyone reacted like there was years of lore behind that sentence. One woman sighed. Another guy shook his head. The grandma looked disappointed. Then somebody muttered, "I never trusted her." At this point I was in way too deep. I couldn't confess anymore. I had accidentally created a whole fake emotional history. Then somehow things got worse. The little kid walked up to me, looked me dead in the eyes, and asked, "Can you still do the bird noise?" The entire family went quiet. Not suspicious quiet. Excited quiet. Like they were waiting for a famous party trick. And this should have been my exit point. This should have been where I finally admitted, "Guys, I'm literally not your relative." Instead, I made the loudest pigeon sound any human being has ever produced. I don't know why. I genuinely don't. Some survival instinct took over and suddenly I'm standing in the middle of an airport aggressively cawing while strangers cheer me on. The kid lost his mind. He still does it. The grandma was crying laughing. One guy almost dropped his suitcase. The teenage girl had her face buried in her hoodie. Meanwhile, I'm internally realizing I've crossed a psychological line. Because once you perform bird impressions for a fake family, there's really no turning back. At that point I wasn't pretending anymore. I had become this man. Then fate finally decided I had suffered enough. Because about 10 minutes later, the real guy showed up. And somehow this man looked exactly like me. Same height, same haircut, same jacket. He walked around the corner dragging a suitcase and immediately froze. The family slowly turned toward him, then toward me, then back toward him. The silence was unbelievable. The grandma looked horrified. The little kid looked betrayed. One woman literally covered her mouth. And after the longest 5 seconds of my life, I quietly said, "To be fair, nobody asked my name." The real guy immediately started laughing so hard he nearly dropped his suitcase. Like full body laughing. Could barely breathe. And honestly that saved the entire situation. Because the second he started laughing, everybody else lost it too. The grandma kept apologizing while laughing at the same time. The little kid still wanted me to do the bird noise again. And somehow, instead of it becoming horribly awkward, the family actually invited me to eat with them while we waited for the flight. Which is still insane to think about. So now I'm sitting in an airport eating terrible pizza with the family that accidentally adopted me for 20 minutes. That's when I finally learned the real guy's name was Daniel. And apparently, he really did date a girl from Boston. He actually could do bird impressions. The family genuinely hated the Boston girlfriend. At one point Daniel looked at me and said, "You really committed to the bit." And honestly, I had no defense. What was I supposed to say? "Sorry, your grandma hugged me and I panicked into identity fraud?" Then somehow the situation got even dumber. Because the little kid demanded a bird noise competition between me and Daniel. So there we were. Two grown men beside gate 14 making aggressive pigeon sounds while exhausted travelers watched in complete confusion. Daniel's impressions were technically more accurate. Mine sounded emotionally unstable. According to the kid, that made mine funnier, which honestly felt like winning. Eventually boarding started and we all had to split up. Before leaving, the grandma hugged me again, this time intentionally, and right before they walked away, the little kid turned around and yelled, "Bye, other Daniel." I still think about that sometimes, because out of all the weird random things that can happen in airports, I somehow ended up accidentally joining a family reunion because nobody asked my name fast enough. Still the weirdest day of my life.